As we focus on the latest tourism accommodation figures that are expected from Statistics South Africa later today, and analysts are optimistic. Now, the previous figures saw a 17.8% increase in the number of stay unit nights, and this was attributed to the 53.4% hike in total income for the tourist accommodation industry. CEO at the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, Tshivhengwa, joins us now for more on this. Thank you so much for your time, Tshifiwa. Let's first start with the expected outcomes of this batch of data. The previous figures saw a very healthy increase.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me, and good morning to you and to your viewers. We do expect that the figures that are going to be released today will show the industry that's in recovery, the industry that's being very resilient and pushing forward with recovering from domestic market as well as international markets, and the conference as well as including, the opening of the sporting events. So we do believe that the figures are going to show, again, that the industry is recovering. It's healthier than what it used to be in the past. Of course, we still need to be worried about a few things, going forward. But we don't expect any less than the previous figures that have been announced. If it's any less, it's not going to be significantly any less. But we do expect that we will continue to recover and will continue to show strength month on month in terms of accommodation statistics and the revenue that we are collecting.
Let's talk about those concerns that exist in the immediate future. What are they? I mean, relaxed regulations has been good, especially when we look on the side of the local market feeding into activity into the tourism sector.
Well, the local market have done well. South Africans have been traveling their own country, and we do expect that, the opening of conferencing and, of course, what I've said, the sporting events where people go to stadium is going to have a huge impact on our industry. But we need to be worried about the rising cost of fuel. People may not be able to travel as much as they used to. We have to also worry about the fact that we don't have enough air capacity in terms of moving people using, airplanes, or having enough airlines that are operating domestically. That's still going to be an issue that is going to be facing us in the immediate future, and we need to be worried about that. From the international point of view, we do know that we haven't fully recovered. We still expect that more airlines, will be considering coming into South Africa, and perhaps during our summer season, we will see more and more airlines increasing frequency and capacity into South Africa. So that's still, issues of concern. But of course, we still are living with COVID, and we've seen, many places in the U.S., returning to wearing masks and so forth and so on. So COVID is still with us, and it still poses a danger, and we can't keep our eye off it as yet until such time that is declared by the World Health Organization. So those are the worries that we have. But overall, as I've said, things are looking positive. We hope to continue in this positive way. And we will work harder to make sure that, the momentum that we've gathered, remains, and we get more people back at work, and the economy will be impacted positively.
Before we go into the progress that we are seeing and the expected outlook there of a continued trajectory that is upward in the tourism sector, I think I want to touch on what you've alluded on with regards to the challenges in the aviation sector. Currently, we've seen complaints from both social media and just in general conversations about the spike in the travel costs where airlines are concerned. Of course, there is a gap in that market since one of the airlines was grounded. How much of an impact is that likely to have on domestic travel?
Well, it's going to have an impact on domestic travel in terms of the movement of people. If you want to fly to Durban or Cape Town, there will be an impact, especially the fact that, 60% of domestic travelers, come from Gauteng province. So it simply means that if you live here in Gauteng and you want to fly into Cape Town, there may be a bit of congestion there. The second point is that we are lobbying international airlines to increase frequency into South Africa, whether they come into Johannesburg, going to Cape Town, or they're going to Durban, or Lanseria, or many other places. It simply means that there may not be enough capacity domestically to move the international passengers across the country. So therefore, there will be bottlenecks, and that's not desirable, from the tourism, point of view. So, those challenges are there. And we have seen various articles that have been written regarding, the prices of air tickets. We need to look also into the input cost. There are many challenges, that we have faced in the past and we're going to continue to face in the future. One of those is the whole issue around the fuel cost. And also we need to understand the business of aviation and the margins around aviation, that they are very, very small. But we need more capacity to move people around. What concerns us in the travel and tourism is that we need people to move around. We need enough capacity. And with more people moving around, they will spend their money in big towns, small towns, and many other places, so that we can impact, the economy and also create employment in the areas that are outside the urban areas.
That's exactly what's needed, and it brings me to my next question about gaining on this momentum that the tourism sector is riding on. What more needs to be done from a support level, because the local market or local clients are at least pitching in here. So how do we then capitalize on this progress that we are seeing?
Well, we need to remove the barriers that are there, and we've been talking about these barriers for quite a number of years. Number one, we need to make sure that the tourist vehicles are given the permits to operate timeously, so that we don't have the situation that we have now, where vehicles are being impounded because the Department of Transport cannot issue permits. We need to deal with that. Number two, we need to make sure that the airlines that still have aircrafts that they want to put in the air, we need to make sure that they get the licenses that they need, timeously, to be able to increase capacity as far as, flying domestically is concerned. The third part is that we need to make sure that international airlines that are applying to fly into South Africa, and also other South African airlines that are trying to fly outside of South Africa, are given licenses, on time, to make sure that, the recovery of tourism is fast-tracked. And of course, we need to make sure that, the issues of load shedding that we've been experiencing over the past months in higher levels, we need to deal with that situation, because it's not good, when, businesses have to rely, mostly on generators, and many small businesses don't even have those generators or have the funds, to plow into getting a generator or buying diesel and so forth and so on, because their margins are very small. We need to solve that situation so that the tourism industry, both in urban areas and rural areas, is able to function properly, and we're able to give the experiences that we promise our guests, when they come into South Africa, and also when they travel within South Africa. If we don't do these things right, people have a choice in terms of where they want to travel to. South Africans have a choice whether they need to travel domestically or go overseas. And also the overseas, travelers have a choice to go to other countries. So let's make it easy for those that want to travel within South Africa and also into South Africa to do so by, doing all these things. Of course, the e-visa is one of those. That's still a challenge. We have not perfected it, and we still have many, many milestones to go to make it world-class.
That load shedding issue is of serious concern, and the effect on the SME sector within tourism becomes even of a greater worry. I'm also interested, Tshifiwa, in the input that we've seen from the local businesses in terms of bed and breakfasts, as well as other accommodation sites that are feeding positively into this particular market. What's to be said about the progress that we are seeing there? Because since the 2010 World Cup, it had seemed to be somewhat of an old story.
Well, in the small accommodation sector, which is, one of the most vulnerable, subsectors of our industry, is that, you will see this, in the future accommodation statistics when we talk about revenue. And also when we talk about profits, more importantly, because you will have the revenue, but if you are financing your own establishments, producing your own electricity, buying diesel and so forth and so on, is going to show that, the impact is going to be far greater. And that's not a good thing, because these businesses, as much as they're small, they are in areas that they are needed the most in terms of job creation and impacting the economy. So what we would love to see is that, there has to be an improvement on the current status quo on electricity generation. And again, once we have this improvement, it means that, there will be improvement on our side. And of course, we are worried also, about other things, as I've said, fuel increases do have an impact because the price of food goes up. And when the price of food goes up, it simply means that, we need to increase our prices. And if you look at the domestic market as well as the international market, but most of the domestic market, they're price sensitive. And we need to be, wary about that as we do our businesses. And we need to protect that market because it's the one that has pushed us through the pandemic. So there are a lot of things that we need to sort of juggle. But the input costs are increasing, and it's going to be felt across the board, but more so from the small business side.
Thank you so much for your time and insights. That is the TBCSA's CEO, Tshivhengwa, talking to us this morning about that expected data around the tourism accommodation numbers. We did see a spike in the previous data from Stats SA, and today the market is essentially expecting even more progress in terms of an upside in those figures.